Hello and welcome to an all-new Max Chroma tutorial video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how we can use the AI image generating service Midjourney to generate an image, and then we're going to take that image and we're going to put it onto a t-shirt. I'm going to use Photoshop to prepare the artwork. I might use Gigapixel to upscale it first, even though it's not really necessary because of the t-shirt printing process. But I'm then going to go and also print it using my direct-to-film rip, the Acro Rip software, but I'm going to prepare that file first so that it works on like a dark shirt color or printing it on a black shirt color using the Max Chroma DTF Auto Prepper Halftone Rip, and that's a $20 action set that I have available on my payhip.com/maxchroma web store. So let's just go right into the Midjourney bot using this prompt that I got set up here. And it's just a generic kind of thing, an astronaut riding a bike, but we're going to just try to get it like a t-shirt effect. So it's a tour t-shirt with an astronaut riding on a bike in the style of concert poster, professional graphic tee art on a black background, graffiti vector airbrush gradient shading style, an illustration of an astronaut riding a bicycle on a planet in the style of visual screen tone blending fade aesthetics. Photorealistic tritone color harmonies with comic book pop art halftones fading into the darker shirt color. Space Adventure Core, Screen Printer Core by Max Chroma Color, and the aspect ratio of 4:5, so it's like a little taller than it is wide. And I kind of reiterate the astronaut riding on a bike because I've got so much other stuff going on in here that I want it to get that concept. And all this other stuff is kind of like a t-shirt art style, but keep it with like gradients and shading and just all that stuff that's in there. Let's see what we get. I haven't actually tried this prompt yet. I did a few other ones that were based off of feeding it images and getting a prompt out of it, but I wanted to kind of write one from scratch just with the astronaut on a bike and trying to get all these other things. This is using the latest version of Midjourney, version 5.1. without any other settings, like no other stylization or chaos factor or other settings. And so while that's waiting to start, I'll show you why I decided to do this one. There was a couple other samples that I did that just came out really cool. And so I think this will work good on a black t-shirt to show what I'm going to do with the halftone prep. So what we'll do is try to knock out all of the shading in the art, or we'll just try to cut out as much of the black of the t-shirt color in the art, and wherever it does some shading we might put halftones in there. But and you can kind of see on this one here that it almost does that sometimes. It puts little halftone dots or other effects in there, and you saw in the prompt I'm kind of asking for that over here. So you can see it's starting to come out, but I wanted more of a photorealistic colors but still have it kind of like artistic. This looks like it's really coming out nice. So as soon as this is done, what we can do is upscale all of them. That really doesn't upscale in the version 5.1. It just gives you a copy of each one. And so there's two ways you could upscale each one if you wanted to go to your gallery, or you can just right click and do apps, DM results. And now it's going to just give the 4 images to me separately. And so here we go. Let's look at them. That's really cool. I'm liking that. Here's another one. That's awesome. Okay, and these do really lend themselves well to the dark shirt color, the black shirt. Okay, man, I really like this one. I don't know if it's kind of realistic, I guess. I don't know where his feet are really. On the pedal, I guess. Well, this is like a motocross bike, so that could work. There might be a lot of stuff going on here with the transfer film process. A lot of ink in this area. Some of it in this area. Maybe I'll pick one that fades out a little more. This is pretty cool. Decisions. I don't know. I think this one is really nice and would just look really cool on a shirt. There'll be some fading, although it's not like you're going to see a lot of the shading effects. So I kind of want to pick one that has more shading in it to show you. Yeah, this one should work great. I think I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to actually save the image. Okay, yeah, right, just to the desktop is fine. And we're going to go to open this image. I could bring it into Gigapixel. Okay, and here's where you're going to see the real difference between the pixelated version. And I'm just going to do standard and suppress noise a little, remove blur, fix compression, no face recovery. But you can kind of see the pixelated version and the cleaned up version. It does some pretty incredible stuff. And honestly, this will work great. I don't really have to do this part, okay? But it's like I am going to increase its resolution to about 600. Like, let's look down here, see what it does to this stuff. Let it update. Yeah, that's pretty nice, really. It even kind of made those halftone dot things there. That's really interesting. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and say save image. And I only did it about 4 times resolution, so it went from 960 by 1200 to 3840 by 4800. And that might translate well to the print size we're going to do at 600 dpi to enable it to do the halftone rendering part in Photoshop. So here's this 4 times upscaled image. Oops, I'm going to drag it right into Photoshop. And then, like I mentioned, now I might just crop this in a little bit to the edges and to right here. And then I'm going to say image adjustments. You could saturate it more, brighten it up more, or even change the colors around if you wanted to. I think this looks cool. This looks fine. What we're going to do is check the resolution and the print size. So now that I cropped it in a bit to the edges of the art, I'm going to make sure the print size, I'm going to uncheck resample and just go to 600 first and see what we get. And that's already 6.3 by 7.24 inches. So then I'll check resample and I'll say, okay, just go up now to about 12 wide by 13 or 14 tall there. So let's just hit OK. And now that's going to be resized. And so here I'm going in preparing the file for the t-shirt print. And I'm going to, like I said, use those Photoshop actions I've got, the Max Chroma DTF Auto Prepper, and the action set is right here already loaded, version 1.0.8. And instead of just doing the one that's for black t-shirts, I have a DTF prep for black shirt. That one tends to cut out almost too much of the artwork. It all goes to a lot of halftones if you don't have some super bright colors in there. Like if the artwork's not really saturated a lot with really bright colors and like bright whites and stuff, that one may cut out too much of the shades that we want. So we want to keep some of the shading in here. And so that's when I use the DTF prep for custom shirt. And I could do this one, the full automatic one. It's going to run at 30 LPI and 600 DPI with like a round halftone dot. I could pick that one, or I could choose the user choice one if I want to change some of those settings. But usually what it lets you do, even when you do this DTF prep for custom shirt one, it's going to have you pick that custom color. And the point of choosing this, even when you have a black shirt, is you pick the color like this, so you do sampled colors. And you can see it right here, actually. So I'll show you, instead of sampled colors, shadows would kind of be like the normal range of the black that it would pull out of the art. And so it would actually pull that much out. You would only be left with some of these darker areas as being the part of the print that would still be there. I don't want to remove that much or do it this way, perhaps. So what I'm going to do is actually go to sampled colors and choose that background color. Like if I pick this color, you see how it shows there when we increase the fuzziness, it's increasing how much of that color is being selected. So when I select the black background color, the fuzziness lets me control how much I want to cut into the art. And so I'm thinking about, if I don't cut in at all, it's going to be a big patch on the shirt. And when you do the direct to film process, it does have a bit of a feeling on the shirt. It ends up pretty soft after a couple washes, but you still feel kind of like as if it was a screen print with plastisol ink, or a little bit more papery feeling than that, but it still comes out really good and feels great. The thing is you don't want to do a huge patch on the shirt like that. So you want to cut into it, but make it fade in. And this is where my action comes into play, turns it into halftones. So I'm going to cut in maybe to some of those shades here, but I want to keep some of it. If I go in too far, I'm going to be cutting into all that and all that part of the moon there. So I'm going to kind of cut in maybe just about that far. Like not too much, not leaving too much stuff in the art and not cutting out way too much. So I'm going to just do it to about, maybe right to about there, 142. So when I hit OK, this now goes and cuts that out, and you see now it's deleted it but reconverted it into having a shirt color behind it, so I can look at it on this, you know, a different shirt color, let's say. And the art layer is now got that cut out to halftones. But the important thing is that the halftones still have shading in them, like from the original art. And it's not just done it in the normal black shirt removal one, where that like leaves all these bright hues in place and doesn't have the original shading. So I kind of want to keep some of those dots with the shading, right? And the way this stuff sort of comes out when it prints is you can also simulate using this layer. And I might show you in this video because it's kind of cool. When you put the powder down after the print, the glue is going to go around the edges a little bit. So you might see that in the first heat pressing, but when you press it again, it kind of doesn't show up as bad. But I can simulate that even by putting a stroke around the artwork and set it to just a few pixels, and then set it to like this darker color, okay? Let's say it's like that. So sometimes you'll get this effect where you see the glue, it looks sort of shiny on the shirt after you press it. But what I'm trying to do here is to say, okay, even if that shows up around those colors, do I maybe saturate them a bit more? And do I just like let that show up and it still works because I cut in far enough that that works sort of like a shade in the artwork. So I can increase the saturation a little. And we can just sort of make it so that, yeah, honestly, it works out. That's supposed to just be like a darker shade. It doesn't need to be like really bluish, I think. It can just look kind of grayish like it was in the art originally, right? So what I'm doing is just simulating if some of that glue shows up around the edges, and even if it's sort of shiny still and I see it, it shouldn't be too bad. It may fill in some of these areas a bit more. I could expand those pixels a bit. And I'm going to show you this in the video when I print it. What happens is you'll see it sort of like that, and it's sort of shining more than the shirt color. But then you'll heat press it again, and that will actually get darker. So it'll go a little bit darker. It'll sit into the shirt more. And then what happens is you kind of don't see it as much. From a distance, that tends to look good. And the whole reason I'm cutting in to the art, not as much, but leaving some of it behind and keeping it that shaded color, is so that we can get that effect of the shades of the art is really where it cuts out, and then it goes to the shirt color out here, right? And so we're just simulating that just to see what it may do ahead of time, and to, you know, be like, okay, that should work okay. You should still get this effect. So let's just turn that off, turn off this layer, and we're going to save this as a PNG file. So I want to do file, or we can just delete that background layer. I don't think it really has to be merged or anything. Just save as, go to the desktop, PNG. We're going to say astronaut on bike test 1. No compression, so it doesn't like take longer to save the file. Now with that done, I'm just going to minimize Photoshop. Here's the file. I'm going to go to the DTF Acro Rip, DTF Rip version 11, the wide format one for my Epson Stylus Pro 3800. And I'm going to open the file. I've already got my settings pretty much set for it, but here's the astronaut on bike test. And on the 13 by 18 films, we can do probably about 12 by, you know, this image is only about 12 by 14, right? Let's see here. Yeah, this should work out good. Okay, so here it is. We're going to go to layout down here, and then I'm going to go just a little bit over, like 0.5 inches over maybe. So it's in the center, and I'll keep it starting at that point. And because the sheet tends to feed through a little bit first. And we want to do mirror image, so we actually get this look right here. It'll flip when we print it. This image doesn't really matter if it's mirrored or not, right? Like there's not really a big difference in how it looks. As far as there's nothing realistic in here that you'd say, oh, that's wrong. It switched over, now it's backwards. It would still work like this, but I kind of want to make sure I'm showing you guys how the process works. To keep it looking like this, and there's text and other things, it is very important that you mirror the image, either in your RIP software or before you do it. Okay, so then I've got the settings here. We go to printer. I've got those settings set up, the 1440 by 1440 DPI. These settings are for my Epson Stylus Pro with this software, and I'm just doing a certain percentage of the inks. And when I go to white, this is important when you're cutting the art out like that with the halftones and leaving some of the shading in there. we're going to preview the white, and we're going to do a gradient white. Instead of 100% white under all the pixels, we want to do a gradient white, so there's not as much white ink around the edges of the darker shades of color where it gets close to the shirt color edge. And we can choose to make that a little brighter if we want. Add more, you don't want to go too far though. So it's like either keep it like this or just go a little bit. Maybe I'll do like 10%. And then I'll do the white channel, printing all of them, and I'm going to do a special white choke of 2 pixels. So it just cuts in 2 pixels into the artwork. I can show you sort of what that looks like. And even when you have this selected and you're in the actions, one of the new updates I made is you can generate those white layers. If you're sending it out or you have it set up for a different process where you need to supply the white layer, you can generate the white layer with the choke, 1 or 2 pixels or a custom amount, or with the gradient. So I'll show you what I'm doing. It's generating a gradient white of the art. You just have to have it selected with nothing else selected. And then we can put that on a shirt color just to show you. So I'll just put a shirt color in here below that. So you can see I'm generating this white layer that's a gradient, but it's cut back by 2 pixels. So here's the color. I'll move this on top of it. So we're going to be printing the white where it goes on top of the inks on that film, and it's cut back by the 2 pixels there. And then I also don't want to have a lot of pure bright white close to the edges like that. So this is all just part of my process, the way that I convert this artwork into something, then prepare it with these actions, and then use some of this equipment that I have to put it on a t-shirt. And so what I'll see coming out of the printer is like on that lighter film, I'll see it printing the color and the white layer, and we should get this kind of effect. We should see this on the film when it's done, but it'll be flipped, and then we'll flip it over to print it. So this is ready to go now. I got the 2 pixel choke. I'm ready to just print it. I have all the settings set up. We can do the preview color, preview it in color on the shirt color there. And we're just going to go back to the printer and print. And here it's important I set these things right as well. I want to do 1 pass of white and 1 pass of color. And I want to print the color first and print white plus color. So it does all at the same time. But it does the color first. So it's going down first, and then the white is on top of it for a direct-to-film print. And I can do a little bit of time, giving it time to dry in between the head passes, but you don't really need to. With direct to film, you're kind of keeping the ink wet and then applying a powder on it. So I'll show you that process. But I'm basically going to stop the video here, hit print, load the paper in there, and show you guys. It'll continue the video. You'll just see it next. I'm going to show you printing this out on the film. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Max Chroma. I'm going to show you printing out on the Epson Stylus Pro 3800 right now. I have it loaded with direct-to-film inks, and it's got direct-to-film loaded in there. Direct digital transfer film, you could call it. And I'm using the Kodak inks, and I'm just going to open this up and show you that it's starting to print that I showed you in the previous video. And it'll just take a few minutes to print out, and then I'll bring it over to apply the powdered glue. And so I'll show you guys just an update in, about a minute or so, show you how the print was coming out like I pointed it out in the previous video. And it'll come out with the white on top and everything's wet. We'll bring it over to another room to apply the powder. I think it's important and smart to not really do the powdering too close to the printer, because I've seen where powder can get into the printer for certain setups. A lot of that powder is going to float in the air very easily, so you got to be careful that the powder doesn't get into the printer area. I just keep it in a separate room to do that process. Okay, so you can see now, zoom in a bit, how it's printing the color first, and then it applies the white after it does the color. So when it's going through, it's putting the color down and then the white. So we'll show you guys when this print comes out a little bit further, and you can see it looks like the way I was showing you. We previewed it in the video. What's going on, guys? It's Max Chroma here again. Let me just turn the flash on and show you guys the print coming out of the direct-to-film printer, the Epson Stylus Pro 3800. And actually, I bought this printer used, and I actually have another one over here, another converted one for direct-to-film. This one does work. I just had it sitting a little bit longer than this one, and so I got to just go through and clean and do the cleaning and shake the inks up and all that stuff a little bit more. I got this only for like $48 on eBay. I paid more for the shipping than I did for the printer, okay? And so using this printer with the inks loaded in. I have Kodak inks and the Kodak film. Printing it now, the rip software, that Acro rip was what cost like $600. There's not a lot of ways around that when you're trying to do the white ink. My actions for 20 are the thing that help you convert the art to halftones when it fades out to the shirt color. You can see we're almost done here. And so the preparation is the cool part, where you go and then make it so it fades out into the shirt color and you don't put as much ink down, and you're still doing a transfer print, but it works on the dark shirt color really, really well. It really works for any shirt color. Now I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to be putting it through this Riley Cure Jr. conveyor dryer that I use for my screen printing setup. And so this also doubles as my curing oven for the powder. So after this is done, just showing you guys the whole process here. After this is done, I'm going to bring it over to put the powder on like I was mentioning to you, and I'll show you that next. Hey guys, it's Max Chroma. So the print is now done, and I'm going to zoom in and show you guys. So it's done the shading and it's done the halftones. It's put the white ink there. Okay, you can see it's basically you can see the reflection. You see this is basically wet ink, okay, on this film. It stays wet until we bring it over to the other room and apply the powder. And then that's what I was telling you in the previous part of the video, where the powder will end up going over those dots a little bit. And but it's clear, or I use a black powder. It kind of just doesn't show up on the black shirt, just a little bit. And then we'll put it into the conveyor dryer to cure it, and we'll put it on the heat press with a t-shirt. So let's continue. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys the next step in the process here. I have a bin, and I have the direct-to-film powder. I'm using the black powder for this one. You can use it on like shirt colors or black shirts. It still comes out good with the white powder. Now I got my film here, and so it's printed out. You can see there's the white on that side, and then here's the color on this side. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to lay this down, and I usually put the powder towards one end, so I can put that in there like this. And then I'll use this little tray here. And it's important to wear gloves and to have a respirator, really, goggles. You don't want to get this powder into your eyes or breathe it in. But I'm just going to scoop some of it up, and I'm just going to basically like apply it like all over the whole thing like this. Okay, it's a little harder for me to do with just the one hand, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. Just putting it all over the entire thing. Okay, and then once you got a good amount on it, you don't need all of that stuff on there. Once you have a good amount on it, then you can kind of pick up the film from one end, okay? And I'm going to actually go like this. I'm going to roll it both directions. So I'm going to actually go over to this side and try to get that part of it from below. And so I'm going to pick it up and just kind of let all that powder go there. This way the powder goes off the sides. And so I'll go back and forth and do that a few times to apply the powder, so it kind of goes over the whole surface evenly to that wet ink. And then in the next step, I'll bring it over to the conveyor dryer to show you guys how it cures. Okay, so now technically the next step, after applying the powder evenly across that surface, you see how the powder has stuck to all that stuff, but it needs something to stick to, so it needs those halftone dots. Otherwise, when you fade the art out to just light amounts of ink, it doesn't work right. It doesn't catch all that glue. Technically, the next step, though, is I got to lift this up. And this is why you want to wear a respirator, too, or just, like, be careful about it. Because I'm going to shake all of this off. And sometimes what you'll do is you'll, like, bat the other side of it with your hand. You'll just, like, tap the other side of it lightly, and then it'll knock all that extra glue off. And I want to make sure that I rub any glue away from like those areas, right? Not that, because it's dots of ink, but just anything that's like up here, like that little powdered bit. I want to kind of rub that off before I bring it over to cure. Okay, so I'll do that technically as the next step, then I'll bring it over to cure. Okay, so the next step in the process is we're going to put this film down on this conveyor belt like so, going into the conveyor dryer. And you got to test your temperatures and get everything set right. I have it set on the slowest setting so that it goes in there, and then it's going to get up to about 250 degrees and stay there for a little bit, and then I'll get it on the other side. But you got to use a temperature gun to actually check that while it's happening. So I'll show you guys that next. How's it going, guys? So we're going to now do the next step where you want to get in here and use a temperature gun to actually point at the thing there. I really don't want it to get too hot like that. 250 should be the best temperature for it, but that'll be okay. The hotter it gets, it's going to dull the colors a bit. So you just got to be careful with that. And you really want the fumes to be exporting out the window. And I'm going to get a exhaust thing for this to make sure all the fumes. And I'm also going to have a lot of fans in this print room here, so that the stuff just like all goes out that window. I'm going to get fans in that window and send it all out there. There's the heat press we're going to use. This is the 6-color manual screen print press we're going to show in some videos coming up next. And here we are back to the print coming out, and so it's just about ready. I'll show you bringing it over to, you want to let it cool down for just a second. Actually, you can do this step right here. Okay, and you kind of want to look at it, inspect it, because what we're looking for is to get an even cure all over the ink. We don't want any of that fuzzy look of the powder. You want it to look like it's been melted. So I might put this through one more time, actually, just to make sure it got cured good. Okay, so that came out pretty good going through the next time. Just kept it at a nice even 255, 260. And so the glue is all melted on there, right? You kind of see that shiny look now to the glue melted everywhere. And you should actually be able to, once it's cooled down, you can touch it, feel like a little bit like an orange peel or so texture. So I've got the shirt all set up and ready, and you kind of want to make sure there's nothing on the shirt. This one is a soft style shirt, so there's just fibers all over it, but it's not too bad really. And so you could use like a tape roller and other stuff and mat it down. So I'm just going to go ahead and then lay this down, okay, on the shirt, like centered. All right, vertically centered and not really angled. Put it over, but I might move it up just a bit so it's a little bit towards the, I have the collar of the shirt right there. So I want it to be like maybe about, 2 to 3 fingers down is where the art starts, So like that. Okay. And then you can press it like this. I don't like to, just in case there's any powder on the top of there that got on it. So I like to take this sheet right here, your Teflon sheet, okay? And we're gonna put that down. This is like your normal heat pressing protective sheet. We'll put that down, and then we got the heat press already heated up here to about 340, 345, set to do for 20 seconds. I'm actually gonna maybe press it for 15 to 20. I'll do the whole 20. I'll just do the whole 20. The thing is, when you go too hot, too much, you will affect the colors a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna press this. I'll stop the video and show you guys after we are done pressing it, because I gotta use both hands to put that down. Okay, so that finished pressing for 20 seconds. I'm now going to remove this sheet, okay? And I can set this over on here. It's fine, just on that palette. And then what we're going to do is I want this to cool down a bit. So I'm actually going to move this over to there and then rub it down to cool it down, and I'll peel it off. You can leave it here. I mean, I guess it's okay. It just takes a little more time to cool down. The other thing I forgot to tell you, I like to put a Pellon or another type of fabric, like another t-shirt fabric, inside here so that there's a layer between the two shirt layers, because the glue will press down in and they'll be stuck together. You got to make sure you keep pulling the shirt apart or it'll be glued together. So you got to be careful about the glue going down into the fibers of the other shirt layer. That's another reason I like to maybe separate it now, but you can kind of just like rub your hand on it to cool it down and help it, because this film right here is a cold peel film. So I'm gonna wait for it to be cold before I peel that off and release the ink onto the shirt. But that's, the fun part, right? So sometimes I'll bring it over there just to give it more time to cool down. We can lift it up a bit to give it, some air maybe underneath it, just to give it a chance, right? A little bit of way to cool here, cool down. It's starting to get cool, it's starting to get all right. There's just a lot of heat in that pad, so. Okay. Just rubbing it kind of gives friction. The heat kind of escapes into your hand. You're kind of helping the heat to escape a bit there. the thing you're looking for when you start to peel it, okay, is that you want to not force it, and you want to just start at a corner, okay, and just make sure that it actually peels off and releases. And if it's not doing it, you may want to go ahead and try again. But this seems like it's coming off. Can you see how much powder is still there, right? So there's going to be some dots of powder. Let me zoom in on it. There's going to be some dots of powder that are small and at the edges, and they get pulled off by the film unless you really put a lot of pressure or maybe press it twice. But you got to be careful, like I said, with how much heat you're putting down. But you see how the glue that held is actually expanded around most of the design, so it should be okay to peel. Okay. You still want to do that cold peel. You don't want to force it. And I'll show you guys sort of how you keep the shirt down and then peel like a part at a time, you know? So I might hold the shirt down here just with my hips and peel it like so. And there we go. Okay. So we peeled all the film off, and now you can see what I was telling you about is the glue layer expanded around the dots, and you can see that shininess to it, right? Well, there's a trick to get rid of the shininess and to make that get darker. Even like this, it's not too bad, okay? It still looks pretty good, but you see that gray effect that I was trying to simulate in the previous steps. Here's the step, the next step, which is applying a finishing sheet. This is a special sheet that has like a silicone textured coating on one side of it. So that texture will go down over the design here, and it'll push it down in. So we're just pushing this down on the shirt, and we're pressing this like so. I'll make sure that's nice and even. So I'm going to do a second pressing to get rid of that shiny, that extra light gray area. And we can do this one just for 10 or 15 seconds. 10 seconds works, so I'm going to actually watch it because I don't have the timer set right there. So I'll continue in a second. Okay, so we did the second pressing now, and this is a hot peel. You just peel this off right away. Okay, and now you guys can see what I mean. All that stuff got darker, and it's still like a dark gray, but it fades out into the shirt color with that dark gray, with the shading in the art. Okay, and so everywhere where the art was fading out with shading, it now just gets darker, and then it goes into the shirt color. So to me, that's like really the right effect you want. And it just looks super cool on the t-shirt, just like that. So we went from Midjourney idea, generating an image, taking it into Photoshop to prepare it with halftones for a dark shirt color. And we applied it after printing it out on a printer, putting the glue on, curing the glue through a dryer of heat, and then putting on a heat press and pressing it. And so that's all done, ready to go. I could just, remove that sheet from the middle, but now it's only glued to that sheet rather than the other side. So that comes out easily. Just pull that off of there, right? So I'll show you guys that. I can just kind of pull that out like so. Actually, that's what I was kind of telling you. The whole reason for showing that to you guys is the glue is going to stick to that part. You want to do this when it's hot. And so we could pull this other sheet out of there. Just get that. Okay. It comes out, but basically you don't want to have the two sides stuck together. You just want the one shirt front like so. And so it feels really good. There's like barely that papery feeling at all. This stuff just comes out great. After a wash or two, you like barely even know. It feels actually soft and nice. Still feels soft like this. So this stuff is awesome, guys. We'll continue with some more videos showing you printing, and we're going to get into some screen printing in the next future videos. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in some more. Subscribe if you like the channel, if you want to get updates about new videos. Like the video if you like it. And thanks for watching.